I know. Another topic dump so soon, but it's just, sometimes there just isn't enough to make full videos. And honestly, maybe one of these will end up being long enough to be a full video, but whatever. That's fine. So just first off, before we get into this first story, this happened a few days ago. I just didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I would just like to put out this desperate plea to the universe. Please stop messing with wild animals to take pictures for social media. It is one thing if you happen to see something just kind of going about its business and you take a picture from where you are, or if something miraculously gets really close to you and you're not in immediate danger and you're not messing with the natural order of something, like if you're kind of like chilling and like a squirrel runs up to you. Ignore the rabies and just go with it.
I'm giving them peanut.
No! But there are so many stories of people ending up in situations where they are really just messing with wild animals, or, animals in zoos and in different enclosures that are still wild animals. Just because it's in a zoo doesn't mean it's a pet. And honestly, this is gonna sound terrible, but in the best case scenario, the person being the idiot is the one who gets hurt. Worst case scenario, the animal ends up dying, like that really tragic story that happened not long ago where a mountain goat was trying so desperately to get away from tourists that it died. And then let's not forget the dolphin that people drug out of the ocean and killed. They've done this with sharks. Let's just not forget the many horrible instances of humans being just the ultimate sacks of shit. But today we have a story where it is the latter. Nope, the former, not the latter, where somebody did a stupid involving an animal and they're the ones who had to deal with the repercussions and luckily did not die. Too often when these situations happen, the person dies. Luckily that did not happen here. Just enough damage to learn a lesson. So basically, a woman in her 30s in Arizona basically jumped over the separate enclosure. So usually at zoos, when you have bigger cats, you have one fenced off area that stops people from getting too close to the enclosure. Then you have the actual enclosure area. A lot of zoos now have glass so that you can't, even if you were kind of in between there, you'd have a really hard time actually getting to the animal and the animal's getting to you. But in a lot of situations, you have one fence that stops average people from going over, and then the second fence that is completely caged off that stops the animal from getting out and you from getting in. But if you're in between those two areas, you are still at risk of getting attacked by the animal, and that is what happened with this. This dumb woman climbed over that enclosure, turned around to take the selfie, and jaguars, being opportunistic predators, stuck its hand through the cage, and it was a female jaguar, and grabbed her. Now, luckily, so very luckily, she starts screaming, and a mom and a son run over. The mom starts distracting the jaguar with a bottle of water. It moves its arm. Son notices that the paw is now not completely latched into her arm, it's just on her sweater. So he grabs her stomach and pulls her, and there is a video making its way around on Twitter of this woman on the ground crying in pain, dealing with the injuries. Now, luckily, she is not severely injured. She actually went back to the zoo to apologize for negative press that the zoo might be getting, but I haven't seen any negative press towards the zoo, just negative press towards you. Now, it's great that she apologized. A lot of people wouldn't. Some people would actually potentially even sue the zoo. It's it's not my fault I'm an idiot. It's your fault for not idiot-proofing your zoo better. So luckily, that's not what happened. She did actually apologize, but for the love of God, how dumb do you have to be in your 30s to jump over an enclosure at a zoo that is clearly there for your protection? These are wild animals, and not just that, they're wild predators, carnivorous predators. Just because they're used to some humans doesn't mean they're used to you, and there's probably certain procedures that you have to follow when you're interacting with these animals, and I'm guessing turning your back to it's no number one. Niente numero uno. I don't think that was the same language, but that's okay. Now, for anybody who is worried that perhaps they will have to put the jaguar down because it attacked a human, that is not gonna happen. They have openly said this was not at the fault of the animal in any way, shape, or form. The animal was just doing what the animal does. There are proper barriers in place, and it's not the wild animal's fault when someone is dumb enough to surpass those barriers. So luckily, nothing will happen to this jaguar. This is one of these situations where it got loose and then just kind of did a rampage everywhere, where then they might be like, okay, you should probably put this to sleep. No, this jaguar was just chilling. It was just chilling, and then this woman just made herself available. And I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, stop being idiots with wild animals, both for your own stupid protection and for the fact that you oftentimes kill them. Leave them alone. Now I realize I spend a lot of time yelling, but this actually pisses me off the most. Don't mess with animals, for the love of God. So I guess my cheesy tagline for that one was, woman tried to get undeniable Tinder selfie so that everybody would swipe right, but she got the swipe that she wasn't expecting. I probably could have made that rhyme at some point, but it was already cheesy enough, so let's just leave it alone. All right, so a couple of other stories people mentioned to me. So I guess in Italy, they are now going to be putting in place a law that says that children have to be vaccinated before they can attend school. I am, for whatever reason, suddenly getting an influx of people just even in completely unrelated videos talking about like vaccination stuff and specifically like pro-anti-vax stuff for topics that it doesn't even apply to, and like lying about it, like people being like, oh, the CDC says that you shouldn't vaccinate your kids, and I'm like, actually the CDC patently says the opposite. But yeah, I guess in Italy, if you're up to the age of 6, you'll be excluded from nurseries and kindergartens if you don't have your vaccinations, and then 6 to 16 you will not be able to attend school. And I guess the specific reason why this law was put into place was because for whatever reason Italy's vaccination numbers were plummeting to below 80%, and they were trying to get those up to 95% because there are people who medically cannot have vaccinations. There are people who are immune compromised from birth. They can't have vaccinations and rely on herd immunity to not die of illnesses that we have cured. So again, I get that there's this whole debate of like of parents having the right to choose what to do with their children, but I kind of put some of this stuff under the same guise as of people denying their children access to certain medical care because of their religion. Fuck off. Like, we're now getting to a point where there's children who have diseases like leukemia, who are now immune compromised even if they had been vaccinated, that can't go to school or really be anywhere in public because of the increased risk of them contracting diseases like measles, which would probably end up killing them. And in the last story that was brought up, Conor McGregor has been arrested. And when I first read the headline, it was Conor McGregor arrested on strong arm robbery and criminal mischief charges. So I was like, strong arm robbery. Does that mean that he like forcefully stole from somebody? Did he commit a robbery? Like, this man has to be worth millions, or at least has millions, and he's gonna steal things. But then I actually read the story and it made a lot more sense. Essentially, he was coming out of a hotel and somebody was taking his picture. He was clearly in a bad mood and was not a fan of this, so he smacked the phone out of the guy's hand. McGregor then started stomping on the phone and then ultimately took the phone with him. So like grabbed the phone and walked away with him, and that's where you get the strong arm robbery, because you denied somebody of their property, which is obviously theft. So even if he didn't take it because he wanted to keep it, he destroyed it and then took it with him. And because of this, McGregor actually ended up with bonds totaling $12,500. And this is now kind of like the second time he's been in the news for less than stellar things. There was that whole violent altercation that he had in a tour bus not long ago. And actually that might have been like a year or a year and a half ago now. But either way, this is kind of like the continuing stretch into kind of deviant behavior for Conor McGregor's, like particularly violent behavior. And it's interesting because due to that last altercation, he was actually suspended from fighting in the UFC, and that was supposed to run out in April, but it's kind of up in the air as to whether or not this recent altercation is going to increase that suspension time. So yeah, I can get it. It might get annoying when people are trying to take your picture all the time, but that probably at least seemed like a fan. Maybe this dude was shouting stuff at him, maybe he was being a dick, but you know, he should know better. He's kind of a celebrity now. He should know better than to like violently swat phones out of people's hands. Like, if it had been a paparazzi and a proper camera, obviously it would have been worth more, so the damages would have been higher in this situation. But I can understand getting really frustrated at paparazzis, but if this was just like a fan trying to take pictures, yeah, it's like annoying if somebody's not like, hey, you know, big fan, do you mind if we take a picture? And you say, you know, yes or no. And then somebody just kind of coming at you with a phone, which is a little bit weird, but you can't be doing that, Connor, because it's obviously it's illegal. It's very illegal. And if you're gonna do the breaking of the phone part, you definitely shouldn't take the phone with you, because then you get headlines saying that you were charged in strong arm robbery. But anyways, that is going to do it for today's little topic dump. Just kind of wanted to talk and rant about a couple things. Let me know what you guys are thinking about any of these stories in the comment section down below. As always, thank you to my Patreon supporters and anybody who's just here watching the video. You guys all make a huge difference. Leave a like if you enjoyed. It does help the channel more than you know. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll catch you all later.